Hello, everyone. I am obviously no one's watching quite yet because I just started up the live stream, but this is for all of you who click on this later and you don't want me just sitting there quietly waiting for people to come on for the first minute of this whole video. But I am a little bit more disheveled than I usually am, and I guess this is technically like the Christmas live stream that I'm doing. But the country is always the country's insane, so it's not a Christmas episode. It's more of just me talking about all the random stuff going on today in Canadian politics, because there actually is a lot. I'm going to be talking about the Justin Trudeau interview he did with that, what's his name? I have it up here, Terry Demont or whatever. It's horrible in more ways than one, and I might start playing clips of it. Hopefully they don't try and like strike me for talking about their video and oh, you're playing clips of our video. It's totally fair use, but whatever. And I also want to talk about the fact, then I'll go into more detail as there's more people watching, but we've had now two National Telegraph reporters and writers getting brutally assaulted and given death threats in Toronto because they want to go cover and counter protest against all of the crazy people over at trying to shut down like Christmas shopping at the Eaton Center, all these crazy Hamas supporters. And they're not pro-Palestinian. They're not, just peace activists wanting a ceasefire. They want children to be safe. They don't. There's a reason why they either said nothing on October 7th when a bunch of Jews were being murdered in Israel, or they openly celebrated it, and now they're only upset once Hamas is now being removed in Gaza. And they're actively hateful against the West. There's a reason why in some of the clips that I'll show on Twitter, I'm probably just going to, stream on my computer, or I'll just kind of like show you my Twitter feed. I'm not going to download all these videos because it gets a bit much. To have to always re-upload all the videos on the back end. But these people steal Canadian flags and rip them up and whatnot. They don't just have a problem with Israel. They have a problem with Israel because Israel is Western and they hate the West. I don't know why these people are in this country if they seem to hate it so much, but I guess we have to live with them unless, I'd be in favor of seeing if any of these people aren't quite citizens yet and maybe putting their citizenships under review and deciding that maybe this isn't the country for them to stick around in. Sausage Slap says, Wyatt, where have you been? I just put up a video yesterday. I will say I am like pretty consistent these days with the actual video making. I am not a fancy editor like any of the people at the other like the other YouTube channels, The Pleb, Clyde Do Something, or True North or Rebel News. I just don't have an editing team, and I'm not a very good editing team because I do not have good editing software. And once I start to sit down and have to edit up a video, it's like 4 days sometimes, and he's like, you might as well just pick a topic that doesn't require editing to talk about. So yeah. Okay, you never mind, you're joking. But yeah, so what I want to talk about is not only is Daniel Boardman and our other team, like co-owner Daniel Boardman, and one of our writers, or past writers and friend of the National Telegraph, Salman Sema, they got attacked in Toronto. Salman literally got his shoulder dislocated because of these nutcases that are trying to like. I'm not sure if they've ever watched The Grinch and they think that, and they don't realize that he's not a hero. But I don't think they realize that trying to shut down Christmas shopping in downtown Toronto is not a great look, especially with a lot of people in downtown Toronto probably being more sympathetic to their message. This is maybe just going to make a lot of Torontonians who are more pliable for the pro or anti-Israel side's point of view, is probably going to make them actually turn on a lot of these people. And so I was almost going to present just so I can actually start showing some of these clips because they're nuts. Daniel literally had a guy like issue a death threat to him into his face. But I'll just do this so I can show you some of these things. I think you guys should be able to hear this stuff too. But I want to go to, so here's people packed with Salmon holding a Canadian flag. And for context, Salman Sema is a former prisoner in Iran. The regime didn't like him because he was a freedom protester in Iran, tortured in one of their worst prisons ever. And it's disgusting to see that when he comes to Canada, the level of disrespect he gets for being patriotic. So he actually went to the hospital and he had to I talked to him on the phone a little bit today. He needed to get morphine because of all the pain, and he had a fracture in his shoulder, in Yeah, dislocated shoulder. I think he had like a fracture along his like shoulder blade or something like that. I don't exactly know, but this wasn't just a little bit of pushing and shoving that went on. I can show you some clips later where people start to mob him and his friend because they're holding the Lion and Sun Iranian flag. It's the old one from the actual pro-freedom Iranian Republic, Republic of Iran. And of course, if you see people with the one with the crescent moon on it today, it's kind of a crescent moon and some other things. That's like the pro current Islamist regime's flag. So whenever you see Salman at these protests or other Iranians, when they have the Lion and Sun one, usually that is like the most pro-freedom person you could ever encounter in Canada. But I want to find another one of these videos from today. Oh, here's the man threatening Daniel. Yeah, so definitely if you guys live in Toronto, try and see if you can identify these people, because the funny thing is when you see these people who are trying to threaten Daniel, this isn't the crazy haired kind of like a wild look in his eye type fundamentalist that you would assume that would be at these protests threatening people and whatnot. It's not some guy who's obviously a zealot or whatever who you'd be able to spot him on the street even if he wasn't at one of these protests as being some pro-Hamas guy. These guys, they look good wearing nice fashionable clothing, the beanie on, nice, like, I'm not sure what it is, but like a nice Eddie Bauerish looking jacket, normal middle class looking guy. And then he's the sort of guy who gets up into Daniel's face and issues him death threats, pushes him, and is doing all this other stuff. So the thing is, a lot of the kind of extremists who enter Canada and try to enter our political system and push their views, they come off very professional, very corporate in a certain sense, because they understand in order to appeal to mindless left-wing Canadians, if they kind of have the trappings that this might be a progressive metropolitan sort of a guy, they'll listen to him and maybe even adopt some of his radical views, when he would fit in perfectly if you drop some of these people off in like, you know, in an Afghani cave. It's nuts, but this is definitely why we need to have stricter laws when it comes to values testing for people who want Canadian citizenships. We should be probing people for that. Do you hate the West? Do you hate individuals who live in the West? Well, then you shouldn't live here. You shouldn't live in a place where you hate the freedom that our country stands for. But here's the video.
Hey, move away. Do not fucking touch me.
I'm gonna pass on the mic, but I want you to give all your attention, to give out all your voices.
It's easy with the fucking Hamas.
Yeah, so he assaults Daniel. He is making like threats, and also just I love what Daniel and Salman do. I want to get to the video where Salman just walks right through people. These people do not have the right to block you. They do not have the right to get up in your face. You should, you know, when I say push back, not physically, you should never assault someone. If you have to defend yourself, obviously. But when these protesters are out there and they're issuing threats, they're screaming, they're acting childish, you don't have to put up with it. And I think that what's happened in Canada is that we all don't really confront these radical people, and over time they end up sort of taking over the public square and the streets and just end up gaining so much power just through the idea that their protest movements are tougher and stronger than others. Salman does not put up with that stuff, and he just absolutely takes it right back to them. Not in an illegal way in any sense, obviously, but in a way where like he's making sure that he knows that they do not intimidate him. Don Wickenden, thank you for the Merry Christmas message. Merry Christmas to you too. Regardless of all the terrible things going on, it's a wonderful time of year. So hopefully all of the crazy anti-Western protesters and Justin Trudeau don't get you down too much, because there's a lot more to live for than just focusing on you know, all the sort of crazy stuff these people are trying to inflict on our country. I want to queue up. Hopefully I can get to the next clip. I'll let you guys see with what I'm trying to scroll through. Oh, here's the video of him threatening him.
Are you scared?
No.
Are you scared?
No.
Are you scared to death?
No.
You should.
I should.
Are you scared to death?
No.
But even just from this guy, like when you look at him from this angle, like, yeah, you know, like normal looking guy. If you saw him in a grocery store, you're like, oh, probably, you know, gonna go watch the Leafs game when he goes home. I don't watch sports at all, so but you know, Toronto, I guess people still watch the Leafs out there, despite being a perpetual disappointment. But normal looking guy, also a crazy Islamist or anti-Semite.
Why should I be?
Why
So,
should I?
brother,
Listen, I want to tell you
why
something.
should I be?
Correct.
Don't-
This
don't-
guy
don't
assaulted me earlier,
Don't pretend
and he
to
says
be
all
like a
Jews
nice
are
guy.
terrorists.
Don't pretend to be a nice guy, and then
Yeah, like the completely nuts that these people are. Well, and here's the clip of Salman, the other Iranian man. This one's
Here they are
really clip.
they're
Not
attacking.
too much.
So it seems
Yeah, I can just keep
attacking the Iranian flag.
When someone slaps, takes and throws Daniel's phone into the crowd, and Daniel has to go recover it. I think his phone should be fine, but yeah, no, like that's assault. That should actually be getting you intervened with police. They should be arresting and detaining you, charging you. And no one's ever charged. Literally, not probably one single one of these nutcases were charged at the protest. And again, these aren't even protests. Once you're starting to assault people and steal their possessions, like their flags and whatnot, it's become either a riot or it's become that those people who are taking part in illegal activity do no longer get to be considered demonstrators and protesters. The police should go pick them out and they let them go sit in a prison cell for the rest of the day. That's how it should work. But in Canada, we've taken on this frankly pathetic perspective, or like not perspective, but we have this dumb thing that the police are starting to do more and more. I associate it a lot with the police in like London, England, where even if you are being threatened by another person, they are obviously doing something illegal. They have a protest they didn't get a permit for. They're blocking the streets. They're assaulting people. If they are targeting you specifically, and you're sort of one of the counter protesters, or yes, like some individual who's opposing these these demonstrators, they'll say that you're inciting the violence itself. You're inciting the death threats. You're inciting the mob to be unruly. Like Daniel, I'll have to go find the video, but Daniel went back after a police officer who said, well, if you guys go over there towards their protest, it could incite them to violence. And Daniel points out they're literally calling for the deaths of Jews and screaming intifada, intifada, like a call to violent revolution against Israel, or violent a violent struggle against Israel. These people couldn't get any more self-incited than they already are. How is me walking over there to say that I think Canada is good and Western values are good? How is that incitement? Just the fact that they're acting like animals does not mean that I am somehow inciting them into it. That's just what they've done on their own. The only reason that they're not, walking around the streets killing people is because maybe the police would consider stepping in if they were doing that. Yeah, I'll try and grab some questions, but I want to find some other videos here of stuff that was going on. I really want to find Salman's video where he just walks through all the protesters. It's pretty epic. Hopefully I don't feel like I'm ignoring you guys. Karima Saeed had really good clips on her site because of her and her cameraman. Oh, okay. Sorry, this one's great. A guy rips up it's like a half Canadian, half Israeli flag. He rips up and tries to run away with it and face plants. So this one's quite worth watching. I'll go back to the start just so people can see it. So they have the Canadian flag already ripped in half. He's ripping the other half of it away, and then he's going to run away with it.
Justice for genocide!
I didn't touch it.
And Karima's cameraman there did not even touch him. The man just somehow fell on nothing. I don't know how he fell. He just happened to be able to perfectly ironic, just the way I like it. And these people are vandalizing. I'm going through some of these other videos. Like, these people are vandalizing the streets. They're trying to disrupt Christmas shopping at the Eden Center. Like, Karima herself, as you can see here, got trespassed for coming into the Eden Center to sort of film some of the activity going on. But this is what the police do a lot of the times these days. I don't think it's the individual cop's fault. I think it's specifically it's like the higher ups basically who would go after who would probably go after a police officer on the street if they actually decided to do their job and start arresting these people. There would be a massive uproar in the pro-Palestine, quote unquote, more pro-Hamas apologist crowd, and that this police officer would probably get fired because our institutions are run by weaklings who give in to anti-Western individuals. Oh yeah, 100%. It would 100% be like blaming someone who's a victim of rape for being raped. It's basically saying, oh, well, Salman, you put on too short a skirt, and these Palestinian activists have to beat you up now. I do want to play this one just because this one's a bit long, but like you have all these like Antifa types, Palestinian Islamist types surrounding them, assaulting them, pushing them, like issuing threats at them, and the people who are issuing threats too. It's not just against people like Salman and Daniel. They're sometimes trying to get in fights with the cops, and still the cops are treating these people like they're 5-year-olds, and they don't know what they're doing. You can't lock them up. They're minors. These people are in like their 40s. These people are in their 40s and attacking individual Canadian citizens on the street, and they're not touching these people at all because, if you actually want to see a real privileged person in Canada, show up to any left-wing oriented protest. Those people can do whatever they want. Short of killing someone, they can do absolutely whatever they want. Writing on the walls, shutting down Jewish-owned businesses. The media won't even call them anti-Semitic. They'll just say, oh, there was a protest down at Indigo or Zara or whatever other business that's Jewish-owned. A lot of those Jewish-owned restaurants. And they'll say, ooh, Palestinian priest demonstrators went down to X Street, Bloor Street, to make their feelings known about the Palestinian Israel conflict, not mentioning the fact that they're actively targeting people simply because they're Jewish, with no reference to what the person's view is on the Israel-Hamas issue. So, and even then, who cares what they think? The fact that you're targeting individual Canadians based on what their identity is insane. Okay, I found it. Here is the Salman walking through the street clip. It's like 1 minute and 47 seconds, but do what like Salman does, or I'm not going to tell you to do what Salman does because Salman's probably braver than all of us are, but people are not legally allowed to block the streets from you being able to walk. You're allowed to walk where you want. You can't walk right into people, obviously. You can't, if there's a doorway that you're walking towards and there's a person on your left and there's an opening on your right to walk around them, you don't get to walk right in the middle, like right through them. That would be absurd. But when someone's actively stepping in your way, trying to block you, you can keep walking. It is your flat out right to keep walking. Yeah, you can't like bulldozer them or hit them like a linebacker, but you're allowed to continue trying to move forward. It's not your responsibility to stop when some pipsqueak gets in your way, demanding that you stop because I can't believe you would support Western values in Israel. You should be supporting the brave martyrs in Hamas, cutting off the heads of children, whatever. Anyways, here's the clip. It's great.
Merry Christmas, everyone. You have no right.
I like how he just walks around telling people Merry Christmas.
You have no right to block my way. Don't touch me. Don't block. Don't touch me.
Area. Well, if they had a bouncy castle and Canadian flags, the police would definitely show up and crack some skulls.
Show your
We have Hamas and Palestine flags, which is totally all right. We can assault people all day long, but if a bouncy castle was erected on the streets,
don't block my
SWAT teams
I am here with Merry
castroing down the
Christmas message.
sides of
I'm waving
skyscrapers.
Canadian flag. Okay. Okay. We celebrate Christmas sooner. Doesn't matter. Don't block my way. Don't you. Turn up. Don't block my way. Leave me alone. Don't block my way. Don't block my way. Don't block my way. Don't block my way.
Oh, and like to one Carol's comment, yeah, like they're
Don't block my way. Don't assault me. Don't harass me.
Idea. Some of these people, I think, that would actually be considered real security threats because if you support Hamas, maybe the CRA should look into
You're a
that if you
grown
never
man.
funneled
Show
money
your
to a
face.
terrorist organization. But just
I am proud
freeze
to
the
say
bank
Merry
accounts of people
Christmas to
protesting
Why you are
like
hiding your face?
unconstitutional mandates
You are
and
ashamed for
lockdowns.
what you are doing.
Don't joke that that's true in BC. Although I think if you fought in court, you'd still have a good chance of winning, despite how weak a lot of Canadian courts are these days for hearing logic. I want to find the. Sort of, it just seems like I'm scrolling. I'm just trying to find a specific clip or whatever I can get a hold of. Yeah, that was Daniel and the other counter protesters who showed up. And I think it's so telling that whenever you go to these protests, that the fact that people freak out when a counter protester shows up, and whenever you have to freak out because like a single counter protester showed up, it's probably because you know you're doing something bad and you're very uncomfortable being called out. These people are cowards, and yet you'd have people like screaming at Salman and his Iranian friends and Daniel that like they're somehow like cowards or whatever, when they're not covering their faces. These people are in a crowd of hundreds of other nutty Hamas supporters or apologists, and they still have to put on sunglasses and cover up their faces. You know you're not doing something cool in a Western democracy when you have to cover your face before you do it. If you're in like a dictatorship and you're doing something, yeah, maybe cover your face. But if you're having to cover your face in downtown Toronto and you are protesting some left-wing cause that most people should be okay with you doing, it probably means you even know that you've gone way too far in the eyes of the typical Toronto liberal. But hopefully this, by next election, does turn off a lot of Toronto liberals, and they realize that Justin Trudeau is enabling these people, and that the fact that Justin Trudeau cannot come down on these people hard just demonstrates how anti-Western Justin Trudeau has become himself, that he sees that these people are somehow actually noble fighters on behalf of equity or whatever. Definitely not freedom, but Justin Trudeau's highest value of equity. That if you're a bloodthirsty Islamist, well, if you don't make as much money as a Jewish person in Israel, well, Israel must be bad then. Because Hamas fighters don't make as much as IDF soldiers or something like that. I don't know, but Justin Trudeau is a flat-out cultural Marxist, so this is his measuring stick of what fairness looks like on the world stage. But anyways, I want to play a little bit of some excerpts from this Terry Demotte or whatever interview that he did with Justin Trudeau. It's embarrassing. I talked about in my video yesterday. Justin Trudeau and this Terry guy, I think Terry's like an old, presenter on CBC or old radio show host. Again, a man who probably considers himself deeply neutral as a figure, does this propaganda interview with Justin Trudeau. And I don't mind if a friendly interviewer does an interview with a politician. That's totally fine. But this guy would never admit that he's just a liberal shill bringing on Justin Trudeau to promote him. If I had Pierre Poilievre on my podcast, he would be to purely promote Pierre Poilievre. It goes running for a conservative nomination and whatnot, but I would be able to admit it. None of these people will ever admit that what they do is purely to try and boost up the popularity of the Liberal Party. But I'm going to play a little bit of this interview, and it might hurt you a bit because there is almost nothing that Justin Trudeau says in this interview that is remotely interesting. Although many conservative accounts have already pulled clips from this interview to make fun of Justin Trudeau, it takes forever to find an interesting clip of anything. Justin Trudeau is just it's like word salad, the podcast. He's just saying stuff. It's this the most boring talk about him being prime minister. But here it is, and I'll talk about it after maybe it goes on for about a minute. Then I'll try and find another more slightly more interesting place in the interview.
There are other things. So that's every day. The first work thing I do is a briefing, a check-in with some of my senior staff and our top issues team, just to talk about what's sort of going to be the shape of the day. But then,
by the way, it's not my audio that's cutting in and out. For some reason, this whole podcast with Terry and Justin is held together with bubblegum and painter's tape, because for some reason their own professional microphone cannot pick up half the words Trudeau say. Anyway, sorry, back to the clip.
I may go into meetings. I may go into events. I may have just policy briefs. It may be engaging with stakeholders. I mean, it's a huge range of things.
Right.
But most of my days ideally start the same way, which is helping wake up the kids and see them off to school and then head off to work.
So you get the family organized, then you head to the office.
Explaining to my 16-year-old that you don't, just because you're not doing anything that you feel is important doesn't mean you get to cut your first class because you were up too late studying or not
Right.
studying as they are.
Is he a good student?
He's actually good.
This is so dull. It's hard to concentrate. But like it's like this weird. He's trying to do this thing because Polyev's done it successfully, and it's been successful because it was organic. But Polyev's been doing more interviews and in more casual settings where he comes off like a real guy. Not that he's having to put that on, but he's not trying to do these stuffy interviews where we sit down and we just talk about the policy issues of the day. You talk a little bit more about yourself. You talk about your philosophy towards government. But this, like I've said it on Twitter before, Trudeau and Terry are trying to do this like hyper breezy kind of feel to the interview where they're just talking about his kids and whatnot. And what's up, Justin? Oh, how's your day been? Well, what's your future plans for the country? Blah, blah, blah. And they're just sitting back. Like they might as well just start smoking weed because that's kind of like this weird kind of like listless interview like feel that they're trying to go for. And I'm not sure who watches this thing. This has 14,000 views. And I am sorry to anyone who actually went through this entire interview with the audio cutting out and Trudeau saying nothing and Terry just sitting there with his like hand on his face, pretending like any of this is remotely interesting. If Trudeau was on a podcast with me and I wasn't allowed to ask him anything political, I couldn't challenge him. It wouldn't be a fight. And let's say I had to be a liberal shill for an interview. I could come up with something more interesting than this. Like at least bring up Polyev and kind of make fun of the way Polyev does stuff. I don't know what you would make fun of him for, but actually make it fun. This is like the most like they're trying. And as the interview goes on, they have all this fake laughing they do. It is the most artificial, the most artificial, what's one of those additives that they add to food or whatever. It is like the most like, how am I forgetting this? It's like BT whatever MSG. It's like the most MSG style fun ever. It's just them trying to like generate laughter over non-jokes and sit around pretending like this is just Justin and Terry what they do after work. But whatever. Thank you for correcting me still. But yeah, I could not think of that. But yeah, I want to get back to it. But there's just nothing. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. Like who thought this was a good idea? Justin Trudeau is not good unscripted.
He's
and this whole
really
interview might be scripted. I don't know. But I think
he's really focused on basketball. Really focused on
really tall.
Yeah,
is he taller than you?
Oh yeah, he's got taller than me last summer. He's now pushing 6'3".
Jesus.
No signs of slowing down.
Wow.
So between basketball and some different things, he does okay in school.
Justin Trudeau,
not as well as I used to do at his age. So I can't really. My dad used to pull out his old report card saying, "Look, I got straight A's. Why can't you do that?" I'm like,
even if your kid's getting an F, just say your kid's doing good in school. Just don't say that. I'm not a criticism against Trudeau. This is more of a criticism against anyone who talks to a stranger and says, "My kid's okay in school." Just say your kid's doing good, even if they're getting Fs. Just say they're doing fine. Like never, or it makes it sound like they're failing.
Dad, come on. So I promised I'd never lay that on my son, which is convenient because I don't have those report cards to pull out. My daughter is doing that. Ella is great. And the little guy,
he's the little guy.
Yeah, anyway, there are all three of them are so.
You once told me your father always insisted that you have dinner together, and that the dinner conversations could vary between Shakespeare and the Constitution. And I was wondering if you've continued that tradition.
I think we've probably updated the frame, but I had dinner with Ella and one of her friends just last night, and. The conversation was around, what were we talking about? I was explaining to her.
Just do a pre-recorded interview and cut it up. This is so dull. I can't even say anything about it. Hopefully he goes somewhere with this stupid story.
I was trying to have her understand why everyone should know the value of the speed of light, just as part of your general knowledge,
Right.
knowing that
Oh, to be a fly on the wall of Justin Trudeau trying to explain a scientific concept.
it's 300,000 kilometers a second, that it takes 8 minutes for the light to go from the sun to the earth, is just part of the frame of understanding the world. She's like, Dad, you're just confusing me. None of that really matters.
Because your daughter's right. That doesn't mean anything. Like, well, I need you to deeply understand to understand why, garbage pickup happens at the same time at the time it is, and why you have to learn math, and why, it's like, something criminal justice. But you deeply need to know what the speed of light is before you can understand any of that. This is like a water bottle box thingy comment from him. I don't understand why this is. I don't understand what he's flipping talking about.
And I goes, well, no, but you should know what the value of
Right.
C is, because it's a useful number. And anyway, I usually pester them with science geek stuff rather than Shakespeare stuff. But yeah.
Are the kids on social media?
God, yeah.
They are, right?
Yeah. One of the best things that happened was when I chose to we made a decision as a government that we would ban TikTok from government phones.
Yeah.
Well, my kids have government phones
Yeah.
because they're part of the family, and therefore they don't have TikTok on them. And that was.
Are they
that was
mad
a
at
big
you for
victory.
that?
Yeah.
Am I agreeing with Justin Trudeau on something? Oh goodness, I'm agreeing with Justin Trudeau on something. Do not let your kids use TikTok. It's stupid. So if we can get one good piece of advice from Justin Trudeau in this interview, is that don't let your kids have TikTok. If only Trudeau would ban TikTok in the country, since it's literally just Chinese malware. But whatever. And the idea that Justin Trudeau is really a big science nerd. He's going to sit down and tell his daughter and her friend about the speed of light or whatever. I feel like that's a fake conversation. That sounds like such a dull, dumb topic that you would never bring it up. It's so the fact he can't even explain what his point was, supposedly that he made at dinner last night, probably means that he's just making stuff up. But I'm just having fun watching this now. I actually kind of love.
Yeah, I mean, they worked around on going on the website or something
Right.
like that, but it's not the same thing. They're teenagers.
How do you have the conversation about the current state of what politics has become in this country? You can't protect them from it. So what do you tell them?
They know, because we've had conversations all their life about why I'm doing this and why.
Again, can someone stabilize the audio in their own interview show? I just want to quickly check. Does Terry Diot, how many videos? This is his first video? I'm not a professional YouTuber. I can also, Terry Dumont, I can also do a much more competent interview than this. Justin Trudeau should just pay me. Even though he would probably I would not get along with him at all, obviously. But no, he's done like 10 other interviews before this. Wait, what the heck? He hasn't made a video in a year, and his last video was last year's interview with Justin Trudeau. Oh my goodness, do I have to watch that one too now? I kind of want to. Okay, well maybe I'll save that for when Daniel is doing a video with me. But
Why
going through
it
this.
matters, and they've seen the impact, and as they travel with me, as they see the things that we do, that they're getting a lot of pressure and a lot of reactions through social media or anything. So we do have conversations about it, but they tend to, I think, and we talk about it, be reasonably smart about it, and they're learning. I mean, they're learning the tough lessons of people who want to be their friends for the wrong reasons, or people who are trying to use them, or people who are not really their friends, or people who say mean things to them.
I would love to see a kid who's trying to nuzzle up next to one of Justin Trudeau's kids because they want to meet him. I want to meet someone who, for some reason, this many years in, is deeply in love and obsessed with Justin Trudeau. But that was going on for so long, where he's just like, well, how do you talk about that with your kids? We're almost in the realm of an interesting question from Terry Dumont. like, well, okay, you're like, obviously most Canadians do not like your father, or a lot of Canadians do not like your father. Hey, how do they deal with that? And Justin Trudeau like just sits there for like 2 minutes, and he's like, well, we talk about it, and like, you got to know that a lot of stuff out there, and they've seen me traveling, and we've talked about it, and we gotta be smart about it. And like, he's so bad unscripted. It's like his long pauses are not because he's being careful, it's because he has nothing to say, because this is an interview question where you could pretty much answer anyway and you're not going to get in trouble, but he just has nothing. He has absolutely nothing. Maybe he's had too many IPAs in this interview already. Like, but yeah, I don't know. It's just dull.
Without knowing anything about them. And I try to help them through that a little bit, because I certainly know what it's
you've been
like,
through it.
Try and help us
but
by
not in
making
the era of
interesting
social
comment,
media. And we can be somewhat helpful.
Do you see it? Are you ever on social media? Because I see it. My wife and I see it. And I'll say to Jess,
Say what it is. Say what it is.
Jesus Christ,
Hurry.
look at this. Look at
Define your words. What do you mean by what it is? You mean like people not liking Trudeau online?
this
Say what the thing is.
ugliness. Do you see it? And how do you cope with that?
First of all, yeah, I see it. I mean, you can't
not.
even though I don't spend
It?
much time at all on social media,
Right.
I very much know it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there.
You're a little busy.
No, but
So I got to take a picture of this so I can post it. Justin Trudeau, still to this day, and it is not his fault, so I will not hit him too hard on this. Still to this day, just has the weirdest eyebrows I've ever seen. I just wanted to take a close up. There's this weird gap in his eyebrow, and this is why people thought he was like wearing fake eyebrows and they were falling off, because he has this weird gap where you just don't see his eyebrow from this one angle. It's just you just see right through to his like head. So it looks like his like eyebrows are kind of like they're on the right, and then they like duck down. That was always a fun conspiracy theory that he was putting on fake eyebrows. I don't know. It's just dumb, but whatever.
every now
No
and then,
offense to him on that
we'll see.
front.
But inevitably, my reflection is not, "Ooh, that's about me," or "That's this." It's about them. Like my question is always, well, what is going on in this person's life that they are that angry, that they are that lost, that they are.
Okay, now that Trudeau has finally said what it is, I guess it's like hate comments online or whatever. What a stupid thing to just think like, what's going on in that person's head? Like, Justin, you're not like some social media influencer who people are mad at you because you maybe like said the wrong thing in one of your videos. You're like the prime minister. People might be mad at you for more than just petty reasons. Might be because their business went under, or you tried to mandate that they get vaccinated, or because you're undermining the country's economy with crazy taxes and inflation and regulations. It might be the crazy amount of Hamas supporters running around on our streets that you don't seem to comment about. Could be any of those things, but no, Justin Trudeau knows that it's really just these people are like that maybe they were bullied as a kid or something like that. What a jerk. But
that they are needing to lash out to this level. And how can I help them, but how can I help create a society in which they are not going to be that angry? How can we contribute to
what's just like an absolute jerk, like douchebag, that you've been deeply negatively affecting people's lives, but how can I help this person? How can society help this person that I've continually screwed over with all of my policies? No. We have to get to this person's anger issues. Just deflecting. Nothing is ever Justin Trudeau's fault.
that their institutions are going to be? Yes, the world is changing massively.
It's because that person doesn't understand how much they should already love Trudeau because of all the bad things he's done to them. Because if he didn't do those bad things to them, someone else would have done something even worse to them. So really, Justin Trudeau is saving these people from themselves. Because what they would have ended up at the bottom of a bottle if Justin Trudeau wasn't trying to ruin their lives and distracting them from alcoholism or something.
It's changing in ways that, if we position it right, will be good for Canadians and good for Canada. And that's really the focus. As I see people so filled with anguish and fear and concern about what the world's going.
What did he say?
And with anguish
I thought you said English for a second.
and fear and concern about what the world's going. And it comes out a lot in lashing out against me or against World Economic Forum or against whatever the
Oh wait, I gotta hear
governance
that
or
now.
whatever.
He's bringing up the World Economic Forum.
And it comes out a lot in lashing out against me or against World Economic Forum.
Sorry, but I keep saying sorry because I'm slowing it down a bit. But what a telling thing for that if Justin Trudeau is talking about the different things people could be lashing out about, he says first himself. So of course it's himself first. It's nothing against him for mentioning people lashing out against himself. I assume he's acutely aware people do not like him. But the fact that the WEF is the second thing he brings up that people are mad at, like unjustifiably. Justin Trudeau deeply needs people to know that the WEF is not a problem. He didn't bring up Chrystia Freeland or the party or the NDP and Jagmeet or about school boards, or he didn't even do the usual things that people are lashing out against the LGBTQ and the BIPOC community. The second thing was Klaus Schwab and the WEF, because Justin Trudeau deeply needs you to not dislike them. Because, and again, it's not that a lot of people bring up the WF and they'd be like, well, the WF controls him, Justin Trudeau's their puppet. No, Justin Trudeau is just very silly and dumb. And the thing is that the WF and Klaus Schwab are basically like the smarter kid. Not actually smart because all their ideas are completely worthless and like destructive, but they're like the slightly smarter kid that Justin Trudeau copies off the homework of. And the WF will let him copy off their homework as long as he actually tries to implement their plans. And I think that's really ends up what happens. A lot of very shallow center left to left wing, in like politicians don't actually like to come up with their own policies and market them. So they'd rather just copy and paste everything that the WEF does, because the WEF markets all of their policies as super popular and populist and, oh, it's great for society. So they don't actually have to come up with a good plan, because Klaus will just hand them a book and they can just take some bullet points from whatever dumb book he's just published this year. Like Klaus Schwab, never fear people like Klaus Schwab and the WEF. They're ridiculous. Klaus Schwab literally has something that Daniel Boardman talks about all the time, like my co-owner, the guy who was threatened by Hamas supporter today. But he always mentions that Klaus Schwab literally has something called, and it's on the WEF website, called Project Syndicate. It's so silly. You name something Project Syndicate? Are you a 7-year-old playing with action figures? Klaus Schwab has never mentally aged past 14 years old when it comes to how he names things and how he markets his ideas. Like, his actual ideas are somewhat complex. They all end in complete failure, and anyone who reads them with a lukewarm IQ would be able to figure that out. But like, when it comes to the naming of stuff that he does and his interest in how he puts on the WF, it's so silly. It's so like college. It's such like college freshman type things. Like there's weird people doing like weird screamy throat singing in between WEF panels. It's very 18-year-old white girl taking a sociology class. Anyway, sorry, I want to get back to the interview. I didn't think I was going to have this good a time with it. And it's not because the content, it's because there's nothing to this content. I'll back it up 10 seconds for people who weren't here.
And fear and concern about what the world's going. And it comes out a lot in lashing out against me or against World Economic Forum or against whatever
Or Klaus Schwab. You couldn't even name a third
whatever
one.
that is their boogeyman of the day is, but I tend to be a lot of it. It's what can we do to solve for some of those challenges, some of that.
Ooh, I just want to comment on what Tony Fox said. Well, there's a reason why I didn't vote. I'm currently running for a Conservative Party nomination in Calgary Signal Hill. At least one of you here probably does live in the riding, because most of you are probably not from Quebec. And there's 338 ridings, and I assume disproportionately you guys are going to be from more conservative areas of the country. So guaranteed, one of you lives in Calgary Signal Hill. So check which riding you live in. But yeah, I didn't vote for O'Toole in 2021. And the problem with O'Toole was not just that he wasn't very conservative, because you could say, well, is he better than Trudeau? Okay, maybe. The problem with electing someone who's just a bit better than Trudeau is that O'Toole was not going to get a majority government, so he wasn't going to get anything done. And if he did get anything done, it was not going to be an actual big improvement over the Liberals. He would have failed because he wouldn't have actually addressed any of the problems that Justin Trudeau left for the country. And he probably would have been voted out of office in a year and a half, and Justin Trudeau would probably get another majority government. So not only would it be bad tactically because the Conservatives would get nothing done and lose very quickly after O'Toole became prime minister, God forbid, but he would have set the bar so low for what a conservative means. The party would have had to take probably a decade more to just rebuild. It's what happened after Brian Mulroney and Kim Campbell. The PC government had become so lukewarm, center left. It was not right wing in any way. It become so center left, big spending, law regulations, tons of protectionism, despite all of Mulroney's sort of waxing poetic about how much he liked free trade. He was still a big protectionist. And because the government had done such a poor job, it took literally took 13 years to get another conservative government after Kim Campbell lost in 93 because of just how badly they set them back. So that was a good thing that, Tony, you brought up. I wanted to comment on that. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the video. Sorry, I will go back, Captain Midnight.
Anger, some of that fear. How can people see that even though the world is changing, there is room for and there's an opportunity for them to succeed and their kids to succeed and their community to succeed?
Well, you just don't understand. The future's bright, and doesn't matter how, you're just scared of change. And it's actually really great because even though we're trying to undermine and change society artificially from the top down, don't worry, you'll still technically have a place in it. It's the thing that Justin Trudeau wants people to look forward to is so minor and tiny that you will have a place in this world. It's well, I want, more than just a place. I don't want more than just some sort of cubicle that Justin Trudeau forces me to work at. I'd, actually like to, succeed and have freedoms, but whatever.
How do we reassure people that there is success and happiness and a recognition of their value in the future while they're being buffeted by forces designed to make them more anxious, to gin them up with misinformation, disinformation, and quite frankly, political movements out there, particularly.
Maybe Justin Trudeau, if he has a problem with people getting angry because of misinformation and whatnot and disinformation, maybe he should stop spreading misinformation, disinformation. And has he ever considered maybe calling people racist and homophobic and transphobic and bigoted? That's probably another way of making people anxious and annoyed and the type of people, and turning them into the type of people who send him hate comments online. Food for thought.
Particularly the MAGA conservative movement that is designed to amplify people's fears.
Define what MAGA means.
And not provide any real solutions to them. I mean, the complexity of the world right now.
Shrink the size of government, get out of people's way, let them succeed on their own.
Climate change has an economic impact and a security impact.
That's not a governmental
and
solution.
social programs have an economic impact and climate impact, and everything is woven in. The simplification and the dumbing down of politics to emotional knee-jerk reactions is good to mobilize and get people outraged, but it's not good to actually be able to build the kind of consensus and solutions that people need.
How do you explain to people? I've tried to use the hockey.
That was a voice crack.
How do you explain to people? I've tried to use the hockey analogy when I have a conversation.
Man, but Justin Trudeau's groping around more in this interview for a point than he gropes female reporters.
About politics. I often talk about, two teams that meet each other for 7 games in the playoffs. And one of the things that I think is very Canadian is after it's all done, the guys who are battered and bruised and bleeding meet at center ice and shake hands and pat each other on the back. And I try to make people understand you don't hate anybody. Your opponent, the head of the Conservative Party, in the House of Commons, you go at each other. But I try to tell people that's politics. That's the way politics work. Is there a way to tamp that down and make people understand that You don't hate anybody.
First of all,
You disagree with them.
I don't. But
He doesn't hate anybody. Oh, he doesn't hate any of the people he calls racists and transphobes and terrorists and whatnot. Doesn't hate any of them. No. Justin Trudeau just does. He only loves. Justin Trudeau is only capable of love and affection.
two things. First of all, there are always moments in the House around a particular challenge, a particular disaster, a particular moment where you feel these.
And again, guys, because there's another 30 people watching this since I last commented on it, that is not my, ramshackle setup here that is causing his voice to cut in and out. I watched this before the stream started, like a little bit of it. It's just that his actual audio just sucks that bad. Terry Dumont, for some reason, is like a former radio show host, I believe, somehow can only go down in quality. Like we can barely hear him. It's like it's cutting in and out. Like I'm not sure. Like if they needed any reason to reshoot this thing so that Justin Trudeau sounded less like a putz, you had audio issues. Just re-record the thing. I'm a conservative running for a conservative nomination, but whenever I see someone who just doesn't seem to understand how to do communications, I get frustrated. Even if they were pushing ideas I hate, just do it competently. Set your mic up to work properly. It'd be really funny if this entire stream you guys haven't been hearing me at all because I messed up something. That'd be ironic. But I assume my audio is and my mic is working. But like the fact that they can't even get the microphone set up is probably a good sign that maybe you should try and come back, go to the drawing board, and figure something out. This interview does not make anybody like Justin Trudeau any more than they did or didn't. That most people are not happy with Justin Trudeau. And does anyone, if you are in, let's say you're a more moderate liberal, kind of living around the GTA area, but you're going to vote conservative this time, or you just don't know if you're going to vote liberal, is there anything inside this interview that says, you know what, I'm really connecting with Justin Trudeau again? He's just sitting around drinking beer in an incompetently set up studio where we can barely hear him half the time, just going on about crap, going on about nothing. They're just talking about nothing and blaming people for feeling the wrong emotions about Justin Trudeau's failure in office. I don't know how much he pays Terry. If Terry wasn't being paid for this, ask for a paycheck. Dude, you for embarrassing yourself this much with Justin Trudeau and cracking your voice live on air, ask for $100. At least ask for $100. Maybe Justin Trudeau paid for the beer. Who knows? Anyway, sorry, back to the interview.
Moments where we all represent a diverse group of Canadians. We all care for this country enough to make sacrifices to be here, whether we're on government side or opposition side. And you get those moments of that. But the other thing that I reflect on is it's not just that it's
Trudeau feels like someone who'd buttonhole you at a restaurant with IPAs for an hour.
Consistent with who I am and who most of those people are who choose to serve their communities, to hate an opponent. And it's that it's really counterproductive. Like, to my mind, the Liberals made a huge mistake in the years following 2006, the 2006 loss to Stephen Harper, in that so many Liberals didn't like him so viscerally that it clouded their judgment in a whole bunch of different ways. And most Canadians who, Mr. Harper was not a particularly warm and fuzzy style guy.
No.
But most Canadians were like, okay, he seems competent enough. I disagree with him on a few things, but he's not a bad person. The Liberals were busy going, he's a bad person. It's like when you get into that emotional register, you actually lose.
Okay. Justin Trudeau, again, some stumbled into making a good point that, you might have, if you were a liberal, you might, and I would actually agree with that assessment. Harper was definitely not a warm and fuzzy guy, which was a downgrade, which was a problem with him. He didn't really connect with people on that one-to-one level, a little bit cold. And then he's talking about it was a bit counterproductive for Liberals to go around saying he's evil and he's a terrible person. I hate him. Justin Trudeau did that. Didn't you? He literally said, you pieces of S in the parliament to something that Stephen Harper and the Conservatives said. He is a main driver of hatred. Him in the media, ginned up a lot of hatred against the conservatives by saying they're racists for wanting values tests on immigration, applications and all this stuff. He is one of the main drivers of trying to make people hate conservatives by implying that they have all of these uniquely evil social traits about bigotry and intolerance and whatnot. That he's such a hypocrite, and I almost feel just stupid saying that because it's so obvious, but it's just true. When I'm watching a video where he could have chosen to say anything in this interview, but he chooses to say things that the average person's going to look at him and think, we know that you're just lying about your history here. We know, we remember what you said in between 2013 and now. You can't pretend to be the faux moderate in this interview in 2023 after being the guy who cracked skulls in Ottawa because people didn't like your mandates. Like that, you don't get to act like you're the just sort of armchair liberal sitting at home saying that we should all get along and sing Kumbaya and have a cup of cocoa, whatever.
Is your ability to have reasonable conversations on it. But the challenge is when you, and so much of that emotional register is so impactful in politics these days.
Yeah.
So much is done on emotions. I mean, liberals, as reasonable centrists in general, left on sometimes.
The Liberal Party is not centrist in any way. The Liberal Party is actively pushing for more government control in the economy. We are in a subsidy economy right now. Unless the government gives you a grant or lets you go around a bunch of different taxes or regulations, you are not going to have a business more successful than a small business. You are not going to be able to start a massively, wildly successful company without lottery winner chances or the government propping you up. Which is better, Christmas or Hanukkah? I am a Christian, so I think Christmas is better. Even Jewish people will tell you Hanukkah is kind of a bit of a who cares holiday. It is the most pointless of the Jewish holidays because it's kind of like celebrating some weird historical event that's really kind of almost silly. Not silly in a unsubstantial way, but the actual one, someone explains the celebration to, it is a little silly in the sense that it's about oil lasting longer than expected, so we're celebrating that. It was still it's about being able to win a battle or something against some sort of pagan forces, but it's a bit it doesn't have that meatiness to it that Christmas does.
And you get right on other things.
And yes, that was the stupidest.
Are sitting more or less where Canadians are, and most Canadians are thoughtful and reasonable about life and have their own opinions on a whole different range of things, and we can usually go and reach them in a thoughtful way. So we don't have to
go behind in the polls if you are
big negative emotions, and it doesn't really work because we tend to be a little more on the earnest side. Yes, these are problems we can solve. Let's roll up our sleeves and pull together and try and do it.
Yeah.
And it's a harder sell at a time of real anxiety that people are going through to say, yeah, you know what, we're gonna work this in a serious way and we're gonna put forward real solutions. And when there are people on either end of the spectrum saying,
I think he's drinking some weird IPA. I'm not sure where you are, but there's a lot of those
far left.
Calgary.
The system is broken. Capitalism is killing everyone. It's the rich. Nobody should be successful in this country. All those far left tropes that creep in when you can reach that way, or
I like how
conversely on the far right, where it's any government is bad government.
I wish he would talk to his environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault, or how Daniel would say it, Stephen Gilbilio, because Daniel is allergic to saying Stephen Guilbeault's name properly. But is he going to talk to his open socialist environment minister, Stephen Guilbeault, that people shouldn't be allowed to succeed and we should eat the rich? That's who Stephen Guilbeault is. Is Stephen Guilbeault going to be out of cabinet next year? He should be. I would endorse that idea, but he's not. Justin Trudeau's just paying lip service by saying, well, I'm not the far left. Then stop trying to nationalize the economy. Stop trying to make sure that you control what cars people buy. It's simple. But this entire thing is belittling people with real problems, pretending that it's not just you're not able to pay you not being able to pay your mortgage is not an economic issue, and it's not spurred on by the inflation I've caused and all my tax and regulations. It's anxiety. You're just too anxious. Just smoke a bud, sit down and chill out, and all the problems will go away. Like that's effectively like surfer dude Justin Trudeau's solution to the problem.
We're trying to inject people with microchips, where, you know, like all the different things that come, like there's a way of emotionalizing things in a really intense way that is powerful, that does lead to negative emotions like hate and anger.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Canada does very well as a country when we're driven. Actually, we don't end up being driven very often by hate and anger. I mean, it's not us.
That's what disappoints me so much. You know, when I use the hockey
Your terrible audio disappoints me, Terry.
analogy, I always thought that was very Canadian. You scrap and, you know, you kick the crap out of each other, and then you shake hands, you go for a beer. That always was a very Canadian thing to me. People ask me all the time how we became friends. And, you know, people always say to me, I know he's your friend, but, you know, it always opens with that.
I actually love for Terry to explain why Justin Trudeau is his friend. I actually would want to know, anyone who's a friend of Justin Trudeau, why. Does he have a fantastic personality? Is he fun at parties? I don't know, because he just kind of seems like a outside of the political thing. He just talks crap, in the sense he just says stuff. He's almost kind of become like the caricature of like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, where he just goes on about nothing. Like, we gotta end wars and end the homelessness and fight income inequality, and we need we need more women in parliament and stuff like that, and just talks about nothing. Like, I don't like, is he good at sports or something like that? I guess he's somewhat good at boxing, but I doubt Terry's ever met him at a boxing like ring before. Whatever.
We became friends because I used to say, when I thought you were full of shit, I would tell you, right? When we
Tell him now. What are you waiting for, Terry?
disagreed on something, we would have a real sort of, you know, enlightenment, and you'd set me straight. So I want to know, do you have people around you today that tell you when they think that you're full of shit, or they disagree? You do. So there's spirited conversations in caucus.
But that's the only way I can function.
Right.
And that's, you know, for me,
he kicked a man, Ramneesh Sangha, out of his caucus because Ramneesh Sangha disagreed with the Khalistani Sikh separatist crazies in the caucus, and he was saying that we need to not have literal terror supporters in caucus, and Trudeau threw him out. Oh no, but that's what fuels Trudeau. It's disagreement. Nothing fuels Trudeau like throwing one of his own better MPs under the bus as hard and fast as humanly possible. No, Terry, any second now, Terry's going to jump up on the table and bring it to Justin Trudeau, hard and tough questions, rather than like I don't know where Terry's other hand is, but it must be massaging Justin Trudeau's feet, because that is what this interview is. It's nothing. And Justin Trudeau somehow beating himself in this interview. He keeps walking down rabbit holes he really shouldn't be touching on, to the point where conservative news outlets and advocacy organizations are clipping him and like putting this out on social media and being like, guys, he actively thinks that you're stupid if you have if you're not only does he think you're stupid because you're buying any of this stuff, but he thinks like you not being able to pay your mortgage is just your anxiety. It has nothing to do with him. It's just because someone told you something bad about the WEF and it's your fault for being poor. It might as well just be what he says.
Having people who are comfortable disagreeing with me, and telling me where they disagree and forcing me to explain when they disagree, and justify and show that I'm actually engaged with them and thoughtful about it. Listen, it's the way I function. I need to surround myself with brilliant people who disagree and who challenge each other and challenge me, and we figure out what the right thing is. That's the way it is. No, I am delighted. Like it's you know me a little bit. When someone comes at me and goes, "Oh, I got a big thing. I got a big disagreement with you." I'm like, "Okay, clear out. I'm talking to this person for the next half hour."
Well,
right?
This is the most. No, that's not something that's happened ever. And you know how? It's because his framing of this hypothetical scenario that supposedly happens all the time, guys. Fake laugh with me. It happens all the time, guys. And he can't actually come up with a realistic thing. Like, I want you to hear that again. This is not a scenario that happened, because if anything ever happens to you all the time and you're kind of generalizing, oh, this happens to me, and people come up and say this, and then I have to, I talk to them about it. What he's describing, he says it in such an artificial manner. You know that this has never actually happened. No liberal MPs ever come up to him and said, oh, I deeply disagree with you, Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau like embraces them, gives them a big kiss, and says, let's talk about the disagreement.
It's well, you know me a little bit. When someone comes at me and goes, oh, I got a big thing. I got a big disagreement with you. I'm like,
oh, I got a big disagreement with you. This is how people talk.
Okay, clear out. I'm talking to this person for the next half hour.
Well,
right?
we've seen it
Here
on
in the room,
television
guys,
with,
I have
really
Dr.
nasty folks that approach you,
Hey.
and you do your best.
have to-
And I, because I've known you for so
Sorry.
long, people say, why does he do that? I said, because that's who he is. He because he enjoys it and he wants to engage.
And I honestly believe that there is, in any argument, what is most interesting, and the way our political system, was always set up. Look, there is nobody in Parliament right now who doesn't want a better country, right?
It would be great if he would actually reflect that attitude in the public, rather than accusing everyone of being evil who doesn't agree with him. Oh, he loves disagreements, guys. That's just how Justin Trudeau talks. I tell people all the time, I'm Terry Dumont or whatever.
So we can all agree with that. I mean, the Bloc want their own country, but they want it to be better anyway, right? So
he wants to be better.
Then you take a step back. Okay, well, what does a better country mean? Well, it means safe communities with good jobs, and people optimistic about the future, and beautiful environment, and opportunities, and all those sorts of things. On that level, we can still all of us pretty much agree.
Yeah.
The interesting stuff is, okay, how do we get there? What is the best mix of policies? What is the best priorities? What are the things you need to do first? There's a huge range of really important, interesting conversations about that. And that's what politics used to be all about, right? Where
great snag there. Yes. Wasn't Justin Trudeau said, how do we tolerate these people? And talked about, you shouldn't be allowed to sit next to someone on a train or a bus or an airplane if you're not wearing a mask and you're not vaccinated. You shouldn't be allowed, you dirty people. Guys, we just want to be in the same country, guys. We're all pushing for the same goal, blah, blah, blah. So when's Terry going to do what he said? He's going to call Justin Trudeau out on his crap, like he said. Because Terry supposedly loves Justin Trudeau, and they gravitate because Justin Trudeau probably begs him on the phone every single day for Terry to call him out on his garbage, because that's apparently what Terry does all the time. And in this hour and 3-minute interview, I'm waiting 25 minutes in for a tough question. Hey, Justin, why are you doing this? Hey, why did you remove an easy one? Hey, why do you remove the carbon tax on heater oil, but not the rest of all of the other gas and oil and gas products? Never has not happened yet.
More on the left would say, no. We need to take more from the rich and flatten out the income levels for everyone, so everyone can basically just get by. And people more on the right would say, no. Those who are successful, we should be leaving them with lots of resources so they can be even more successful and drag everyone along with us. And then you're in the middle, you say, well, we need to be there for the vulnerable, but we also need successful to be driving the economy. And they figure, and along that spectrum, there's a lot of different good arguments to have. But there is something that is changing right now. And Donald Trump was a symptom of that, not a cause of that. There is a level of anger and sort of burn down the institutions and almost nihilism that's
maybe I'm gonna make people mad, but Terry J, I'd say that the vaccine probably worked in some cases in terms of older people reducing symptoms and whatnot. I do get people's points when they talk about how you gave it to a lot of people where the benefits were so infinitesimally tiny that even though vaccine injuries are rare, they were going to be more common than you were going to benefit from the vaccine in any way. For someone in my age demographic of 24 years old, I probably wasn't benefiting at all from getting vaccinated. I wasn't going to get COVID and die. So probably the chances of getting myocarditis for me were probably higher than getting COVID and it actually affecting me in a negative way. I got COVID anyways. I got a bad sore throat for like 24 hours, and that was it. Probably one of the worst sore throats I've had, one of the worst ones. Still, I survived, but whatever. I had a worse sore throat this year, and it was just the regular cold. Sorry, I took that deviation, but I just want to talk about that. Yeah, 100%. Young people didn't have a reason to take it.
Creeping in all of our countries,
And I 100%
right?
Yeah.
Around the edges, where things that people thought were pretty much well established are suddenly going backwards. And take what happened with Roe versus Wade in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, we know for a long time that the American right has had problems with women's rights.
Okay, Justin, you oppose the Roe versus Wade repealing decision. I know he's not responding to me. I'm more so modeling what should be asked in a situation like this. If Terry was ever actually going to push back on his friend, I know Terry's super pro-abortion too, probably. But if Justin Trudeau is going to say this thing like some Republicans or people on the right have a problem with women's rights, tell me your favorite thing about a 9th-month abortion. Tell me your favorite thing about a sex-selective abortion. Whenever a pro-abortion person, someone who does not have any limits on what they think that, like any weak limit or anything like that, ask them what their favorite part of an abortion is. What is your favorite part of a late-term abortion? They can't tell you because they cannot justify that practice. It is obviously crazy to be in favor of that. That's why if you actually poll Canadians, 90% plus want sex selective and late term eliminated. And then when you start going down through the weeks, you find that Canadians actually probably want like a 12-week ban. When you actually look at what a clear majority of people want, it's far sooner than the Canadian left would think. And I think if the Conservatives or Canadians who are more pro-life, they need to, if you want to market this properly, you actually have to push back on people pretending like their very pro-abortion stance is somehow non-contentious and normal, and that you're contentious for being pro-life. They're the ones who are contentious because they're the ones who are terrified to justify why they think this is an acceptable practice. I'm sorry, I'm cutting off the Trudeau interview again. Maybe I'll have to do this in 2 parts since I'm still not even halfway through. Maybe at like 35 minutes, I'll stop.
But it was never supposed to happen in the United States. You were never supposed to see Roe versus Wade overturned and states and political parties rolling back women's rights that have been fought for generations. And people say, well, at least that'll never happen in Canada. We can no longer say that. There are things that we used to believe that we are now seeing instrumentalized and eroded in very, very real ways.
Why are those winds blowing up here, do you think?
Ooh, Terry's just setting me up today. No, but that's a good point. But I agree. I guarantee Justin Trudeau is probably far more pro-life than he would ever let on, because I think all these people in their personal lives are not actually nearly as pro-abortion as they let on. There are radicals that you run into. Most people, if we implemented a ban, secretly in their hearts, if they were a hard left progressive campaigner, they wouldn't care too much, because outside of obvious, like, yeah, you're obviously not going to like prevent a woman who's about to die from getting an abortion if that she needed it to like not die of something else and the baby wasn't going to survive anyways. Nobody's in favor of that scenario. That also scenario effectively does not actually happen. But Justin Trudeau uses edge cases to pretend that everything is a sympathetic scenario so that he doesn't actually have to argue the real mainstream sort of abortion situations that most people are against it being accessible in. Anyway, sorry, I'll go back to the interview, but thank you for your guys' comments. It's actually been very helpful for creating conversation.
Because a couple of different reasons. One, just because our proximity to the United States means that there's a huge amount of cultural and people to people and stories that overlap and connect,
Right.
and it's just part of our North American landscape that we absorb. The other thing is, I think the American right has increasingly noticed that Canada is a bit of a challenge to them, because they've been busy saying, oh, well, maybe they could do certain things in Sweden and in different countries, but, it won't work in the United States. It won't work in America where we have a particular thing. And then you have a country like Canada that is succeeding in banning assault-style rifles.
We haven't even, okay. We have not confiscated a single quote-unquote assault-style rifle yet. And he's not taking illegal guns off the streets. He's targeting law-abiding gun owners who are the least likely to commit a violent crime in this country. And he's going after them for supposedly being like dangers to Canadian society. And he can, even from his own standards, he actually has not implemented a ban. He's tried to pursue a ban. He's passed some of the stuff. But sorry, I'm having to wipe my eyes. But he has not succeeded in actually taking away anyone's guns yet, other than people the police have arrested and they can take away their guns based on some overblown other issues, or it doesn't really matter. I don't really want to go down the rabbit hole. But he hasn't really implemented a gun ban yet. He's attempting to. He's very dangerous for even trying to do it. But no, he actually hasn't proven that this can work. Because him and all of his various public safety ministers, I even forget who the public safety minister is now, because those people, like Justin Trudeau, is going through them like cheap socks. But he hasn't succeeded. And the thing is that they keep backing off plans to confiscate weapons because they know it's going to be a logistical nightmare, and that Canadians are not going to stand up for the RCMP kicking people's doors down to take someone's uncle's rifle away from them. Someone's uncle who needs it to shoot coyotes on his property and whatnot. An assault style weapon means nothing. It means your gun's black, so it looks like it's made of black plastic and metal, so it looks scary. Oh, there's no such thing as a fully automatic weapon in Canada. You cannot buy one. You can't even buy a fully automatic weapon in the US without a crazy high security clearance rate and license. That is not something that is an issue in either country. In both countries, Canada and the US, the problem is lax enforcement of our current laws and very, very low or weak punishments. That is the problem both in the US and Canada. It's not law-abiding gun owners, people have never committed a crime before, get a gun and they decide they're going to go shoot their neighbor. It's, people smuggling illegal firearms into Canada in order to sell them to gangbangers in downtown Toronto, Edmonton, and rural gangs and whatnot. It's not because there's someone going to Bass Pro Shop because they want to start a gang. No gang members packing their heat from Cabela's. Exporting goods.
Having healthcare that
Did I not have that on screen when I was talking about the guns? I think I did. I hope I'm forgetting. I think I'm good.
everyone gets to access, and we have for a long time. And these are proof points that are not sort of
you could sound so
distant, totally alien countries, but it's
used in this interview
closer, and it is a direct challenge to them, and also.
I was going to say something about what Tony said. Wyatt would definitely make a great politician. Thank you. But it actually gives me a story to tell, a mini one. But I was actually at an event the other day talking about my run for Signal Hill. Not all the people there even lived there, but they were kind of part of a bigger organization in Calgary or Alberta that does a lot of political organizing. And I had one person say I actually do talk like a politician, but the only thing I had just most people didn't think I did, but one person did. But it's just because I talk, frankly, like a Poindexter a lot, so I sound like I'm being very precise and politician-like and trying to move around. But I'll just say, I've told so many people this. I've had so many friends, including Daniel Boardman, tell me I'd make a terrible CSIS agent because I'll just tell you every single thing I'm thinking. If I am a slick politician, I wouldn't even talk about pro-life issues because it's easier not to. If you should, because you should, and my reason why you should is because you should. And I'll just keep saying that you should because it's an obvious issue that you should stand up for basic human rights of the unborn. But whatever, I would not talk about that if I was a real politician. But at the very least, I think I kind of what I've pitched to people, and I think I'm right, is that why I would do well in office is because I'm very conservative. At the same time, I speak fluent center left. I can talk to a 34-year-old person who's not married, doesn't have kids, more of a default liberal, and I could convince them why, without obscuring any of my views or beliefs, I can convince them why it's better in their own language. And that's really what conservatives need to get better at, not watering down the policy. That's the O'Toole way of doing things. They water down the policy and then they speak like they're still conservatives, but everyone can tell that they're a bunch of liberals. What you want to do is take the exact same conservative policies you believe in right now and then find out the words and phrasing and the way that more center-left people talk about those issues, and you can win them onto your side. You just need to know the words that they associate negatively, avoid those. And it's not being dishonest. It's just not accidentally stepping on their toes with language that for some reason just makes them have negative thoughts. That's how you engage with people. Someone's asking me about the Coots 4 situation. I think it's deep. I'm going to be very brief on this. I think it's deeply wrong that I think, frankly, Jeremy McKenzie ended up getting 4 people arrested for something that it seemed like he was more of the ringleader of causing, of basically encouraging people to be more radical and more kind of, pushing the boundaries. And then he told the feds, told the federal government on them and got them arrested, and now is pretending to be their friends. And, my thoughts on Jeremy McKenzie could go on very long. He's a nutcase, anti-Semitic weirdo who me and Daniel and multiple other people have been warning about for years. And now he's pretending as if he's on the Coots 4's side, even though while being probably the obvious ringleader of the 4, ended up getting them all thrown into prison and now is doing fundraisers for them. Wow, that's really nice, Jeremy. Doing fundraisers in between attacking Jewish people, but whatever. What a guy. You can tell I do not like him.
Also a direct opportunity that if they can, I mean, the convoy, for example, had a huge amount of American money flowing into Canada to.
That's just a lie. They've tracked down all the money. It was a tiny fraction of American money. I think it was like less than a fifth of it was American money. The vast majority of it was from Canada. I think it was like 80% plus was from Canada.
To encourage that kind of I think part of it was, hey, let's see if we can actually succeed in destabilizing the Canadian liberal country.
Right.
But part of it also was, it'll be good to have a bit of a buffer, so that we're spreading this movement around far-right MAGAism.
When you look back on the year, what out of all the files and all the things that ended up on your desk and things you had to deal with, what was the one that kept you up at night? What's been the most housing? Okay.
When we came in 2015, we found the government that had.
I know he was talking about like MAGA stuff or whatever, and people are like having their emotions played on, but like the fact that he's pretending that he cares about housing is laughable.
Institutions and departments that had completely lost all.
James, you should dislike Terry. I'm not sure if you were here earlier when he said that. Me and Justin are good friends, and I call him on his crap. When is he doing that? Call him on his crap right now, Terry. Ask him about the crazy high immigration rate that we cannot match with our housing and healthcare supplies. Ask him about the fact that he's made it harder to build houses and the taxes are making it difficult to buy a house.
Working with
any of it, you could talk. Challenge him.
Stephen Harper and Poilievre, as his housing minister, had said repeatedly, federal government doesn't have any role to play on housing, and we had to, from a standing start standing up once again. Our housing and our ability to make housing. We launched a house.
The reason I don't believe the earpiece thing is I've never seen Trudeau in public talk competently enough that I would ever believe that from watching this interview to watching him in real life, that there's a significant enough difference that he's being coached on like in press conferences on what to say.
Housing strategy in 2017 that started to make a huge difference. But then coming out of the pandemic, going into the pandemic, but even more coming out of it, the
100%
pressures on housing,
breezy
combined with one of our advantages in that we're the fastest growing population in the G7.
He's so normalized. He's so much like
it's you. It was a huge challenge to put together, and we realized that even as everything else was getting better and the economy was starting to turn around.
What part of the economy's gotten better? The GDP has gone up, but our GDP per capita has been falling for a while.
And we were successful in delivering things like $10 childcare and now dental care and everything.
Any government program that pitches itself as it's $10 a day childcare, $10 a day dental per visit, it's not. The amount of taxes that you pay for these services, even if you're one of the people getting the services, it is far more than $10. And let's just like really what it is it's that like I'm not sure what the price tag on it is, but let's just say like $2 billion. Might be more than that. I don't know. Might be less. But like it's not $10 a day to healthcare. It's $2 billion healthcare that all Canadian taxpayers had to pay for, and then you have to pay another $10 on top of it if you're one of the few people who wants to access it. No government service is what it claims to be, and it's not because the government's lying to you. It's obviously just a marketing trick. It's not like a conspiracy. It's like we want to promote the fact that it only costs $10 to go to childcare, but factor in the subsidies. And then again, how does this help a low-income person who doesn't have kids? It might help you if you have kids. And even then, you might have kids, but you might not have a daycare center near enough to you, or maybe you don't want to drop your kids off and have at a daycare. Because I think that some people would actually be like to have the tax burden in this country lowered enough that, their wife could stay home and raise their kids directly, and they don't have to send them to daycare so that they can go get a crappy job to try and just pay for the daycare itself.
People are terrified with their mortgage renegotiations.
Go back 5 seconds.
People can't afford the rent. If people are terrified of what their mortgage renegotiation is going to look like, if people, can't imagine as a young person buying a home, anytime in the foreseeable future, then that's something that governments can and must fix. And that's
guys, Justin Trudeau gave them the $40,000 cap
we were always
on
focused
their
on, but we've now
closing investment
really,
funds, savings accounts.
put in place the kinds of things that are accelerating it as is
really solve the problem
now in a really meaningful way. I just had a few conversations this morning with our housing minister, Sean Fraser, because it's a file that he and I talk about all the time. It's one of those things where
I don't think Sean
he's doing
Fraser
a great job, but I am
pronounce
very much in that file
in,
because it's one of those things that
area
are so
of
incredibly tangible for people, and it's a building block to all the rest of the success that we build.
Speaking of conversations, I was watching the other day.
Speaking of conversations, this conversation sucks.
The chat you were having with Governor Newsom.
Yeah.
And obviously there's
goodness, I've said this a couple times now, but to be a fly on the wall between Gavin Newsom and Justin Trudeau
a bit of a friendship there, I think, and a connection there. What was your most productive chat this year? And when you meet with leaders like that, are they productive or are they?
You guys can tell me your opinion. I legitimately think that Justin Trudeau is a smarter, more competent politician than Sean Fraser. I think Sean Fraser is Justin Trudeau minus the charisma. He has nothing to say like Justin Trudeau, but at least Justin Trudeau sometimes is good at marketing himself. Even in this interview, you can kind of see the wheels turning in Justin Trudeau's head, trying to make himself come off like a casual bro. Sean Fraser never comes off like anything but like a NPC. It's hard to watch videos of Sean Fraser just put out some blooper reel of all of his different videos over the last year. Guys, it's so funny. He flubbed a line, blah. Sean Fraser is just zero charisma. He's like Brad Bradford in Toronto, and no shot against Brad Bradford in a bad way. Just Brad Bradford is a guy like in the mayoral election who's never going to come close to becoming mayor, because he's like the most you can say about Sean Fraser, Brad Bradford, and people like this is that in my part of Calgary, it'd be what's his name is really telling that I'm forgetting what his name is. Jeff Davison. All you could say is that they're human men. That is as far as you can. That is as complimentary as I can get about Sean Fraser, is that he is a human male.
A photo ops.
Meeting with leaders, the interest. I mean, there are all these set pieces where we, read statements and exchange sort of a formalized, whether it's at summits or things like that.
Right.
But the real relationships, the real conversations, always happen sort of on the side.
Gotcha.
Like
right.
When we were down earlier this year and in Mexico for the North American Leaders Summit, we had a press conference where the Mexican president answered one question for 45 minutes. We were standing at podium to the side. It was like one of those things. So, but those are all just the conversations that we're playing to the crowd, we're playing to our reporters, something like that. But it's in those moments of unscripted dynamic. We're in the Mexican palace, right? The presidential palace. And AMLO comes to Joe and I and says, "Oh, come on, you got to come see this." Okay. He's like, "Oh, while they're setting up in the boardroom, because we went from the small room with us to go sitting in the extended bilat, all three of us." He says, "Wait, we got 2 seconds. I want to go show you this really cool part of the building." We go over into the corner, and there's this beautiful old gilded elevator thing. It looks ancient. He's like, "Look, it's got these little couches in it. Come on in." It's like, okay. So it's AMLO and his wife and Joe and Jill and me and Sophie. And we walked in and he's like, "Yeah, you can
imagine being stuck in an elevator with Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, their wives, and the Mexican president." I think that's who he's referring to, or someone else. Imagine that.
sit down on the benches." And then AMLO closes the door. The Secret Service, who are never 3 paces from the president,
Right.
are standing there on the other side of the door, along with a couple of photographers' stuff. AMLO goes, "Bye-bye," closes the door, presses the button. We go down 3 floors in this ancient building.
Wow.
He's like, "Okay, coming out." I'm like, "Hey, I got you, Joe." He's like, "Okay, this is interesting." We walk out through an empty room. There's just some like rent-a-cop security guard going, "What the hell?"
Leaders of the free world.
He goes, "We walk out this door. Suddenly we're in the street. We're in
my God.
the street. The 6 of us. You know,
Oh my
there's
God.
no Secret Service within 3 floors of us. There's, 2.
Terry's going to try and OMG his way into pretending that this is at all a compelling story.
like 19-year-old Mexican police officers at a barricade to have the street closed 10 paces from us, looking at us going, "Oh my God," right? I'm like,
The worst kind of story is when someone's telling you a non-story, but they just try and keep hyping up the reactions. And he was like, and I saw another guy, and he hit the button, and we were all like, like this is not a story. Terry, please cut this man
"Joe, we
off.
could just take a run for it right now." He's like, "Oh boy."
Must have given the Secret Service a heart
Oh
attack.
my God. Yeah,
Oh my
I
God.
don't want to
Interesting
think
question.
about the after action reports on this.
So
These moments, right?
the reports of
What
that
a great
picture where
moment
Joe is
for
pointing at you. He's not lecturing you and
Oh my
giving,
God,
giving
Joe,
you
what a-
shit.
we
like
were
a-
laughing about something. It
everybody.
was like-
That picture got published, and everybody's, "Oh, look, the president is giving."
Well, I mean, it
Giving-
was
giving him the what for.
particularly as the Indian media were looking for ways to wedge us for reasons that became obvious.
Is he a nice man, as nice a man as I think he is, the president of the United States?
When he came over in
Joe Biden won't let his own granddaughter use the family name. Joe Biden is a deeply nasty human being. He calls people a racist all of the time, and tries to like literally imply all of his opponents are fascists. He's the one who called black people super predators. I think that I don't think just Joe Biden's exactly someone who even has that impression of Joe Biden. You can have like impressions of him that are not negative, but I've never heard of like there's like wide thing going on that Joe Biden's just such a nice guy. And it's like, I'm running for office, and it's like I'd be fine to work with whoever would be like the president of the United States or something like that. But like, there's nobody out there who has this impression that Joe Biden's just a happy old man. But like Terry's trying to serve like Justin some question where he can compliment Joe.
In March to Ottawa.
Joe Biden literally said black people aren't black if they don't vote for him and they vote for Trump. That sounds like a nice thing to say to people. You're a racial traitor if you don't vote for me.
Kids came in to see him, and Zav was wearing socks, and Didi was buttoned up to the hair with his hair combed. I was like, "Oh God, yeah." He was so nice to them. They were like, "Oh my God, he's so nice." He was like
Uncle Joe.
Just Uncle Joe. I've
heard people like to say who used to work in the White House, he just yells at people a lot.
Insightful. He broke my heart the first time we talked, because in the early 70s, when his first wife had a Canadian family, and they were killed. His wife and child were killed in a terrible accident. I don't remember all the details.
I can't even hear him because
my dad reached out
of audio to say
in the early 70s, and Joe was just a member of Congress, or not particular or anything, and just had and then called him back a few months later to check on how he was doing. He said, calling him back one time, calling him back twice,
Wow.
and that there was, and he
That
was
stuck
always
with him.
so
Wow.
gracious about that.
Yeah.
And,
That was nothing. That's not a
and,
story.
there's a human element that he is a man who cares so deeply about democracy, about the United States, and about the world that
Joe Biden should sue
yeah, no,
Justin
we're,
Trudeau for telling a story about him
he's a
so
good man
incoherently.
to have around.
He makes
Tell
Biden
people who
sound
don't know,
stupid.
I got a kick out of this. There was a nice moment in the house this week with Darren Fisher, the Christmas poem. There's a tradition to that. What is the tradition to that?
Well, that's Roger Kushner, who I just appointed to the Senate, but who was a seatmate of mine for a number of years, who did a stint as our consul general
How
in
much
Boston.
do you think Roger has
Used to do
donated
a
to
night
the Liberal
for
Party over
Christmas
time?
poem, just sort of doing the hijinks from the year and highlights and
I
lowlights
don't
and
mind
stuff. It
if
was
you
just
actually
it was
appoint
just
people
one of
that
those
are
nice
big
moments. And
partisans,
Darren,
it was
But it's
put out a good
tradition,
one.
right? Every year.
It's become a bit of a tradition.
Yeah.
Darren, yeah, he, I think he was trying to prove something. He got pretty spicy in this one. I think everyone came out going, "Can he say that?" But he could. I mean, it was particularly pointed at everyone in a way that I thought was very clever.
There are a lot of things that you can't do anymore. Drive, shop.
That's not true.
Is that not true?
Oh, no.
Okay, this is what
I go.
Do you have milk in the fridge at home?
Yeah. But no, I head into I love
You
to
have
go to
milk at
Canadian
home?
Tire. on
Do you
Sunday
really?
mornings. Oh yeah.
Do you really?
And
That's
I'm not going to go
fascinating to
into
me.
which one I go to and stuff.
Yeah.
But I will, and go every Saturday morning. But I will, I love to go to Canadian Tire. On
Do you
Sunday
really?
mornings. Oh yeah.
Do you really?
And
That's
I'm not gonna
fascinating
go
to
into
me.
which one I go to and stuff.
Yeah.
I will,
Even
and
if you
I
like
go
what
every Saturday morning. But I will go there.
Canadian Tire.
I'll tap on. And I'll just wander around and pick up, more sleds because the kids insist. As soon as the first snow comes,
Right.
they insist on going out, even though the grass and twigs and rocks poking through, and they'll rip the shit out of the underneath of the toboggans every year. So every year I'm having to buy new toboggans, and the nice foam ones because anyway. But so I'll pick up stuff and I'll get more AA batteries and I'll do there's I guess there's people to get all that stuff, but there's something about being able to wander through.
Well, you have to stay.
Canadian
You have to sort of keep your feet on the ground, right? You got to stay in touch,
Well,
right?
But
that's
feel
where
like if he was
because
going
I know you miss driving, don't you?
every year, or let's say every other
Yeah.
year, every third year.
I mean, the motorcade is cool, but you don't
gets
get
old really
Yeah,
fast,
I bet.
Yeah. 5 years ago, there would've been
my
people
friends
that
all
were
point
still
out. I mean,
like,
you've driven with me before. It's not that I'm a bad driver. I
Feels
just
a little
would
fake.
get distracted. I get animated.
Yeah.
I get, so how the country is safer that you don't drive anymore. Come on. I'm a very good driver.
What a waste of time.
Tell me about taking
Zav
Zav to India. I was curious about. Did he ask, or do you think you know what? It's time for you to travel, and I want to take you on this.
But it was a bit of a family tradition where
I know.
Actually, it was one of the pieces of advice that my grandpa Jimmy gave to my
It's not
dad
an interview. It's like
when Dad married Mom.
like they're on some sort of downers.
Jimmy was a
and
cabinet
put it
minister
into,
in
a
Louis
camera
Saint-Laurent's
in the room,
government.
which,
But one of the
might
things, he had
explain
5
why the
daughters,
microphone
and
audio sucks
he
so
would
bad. But like they're
bring
just
one of them with him on
rambling.
various trips because it was a way of both spending one-on-one time and helping them see the world and understand a little bit of what he did and all those sorts of things. So for me, and then my dad did that and traveled us. So by the time I was 13, I'd been to 51 different countries, and being able to bring the kids with me, particularly in Canada, because I really want them to see this country. And that was something that we did all the time. But certain international trips are different than when we were as a kid.
Yeah.
When my dad traveled, perhaps because planes were slower and distances were further and the 24-hour news cycle didn't exist, we could go and he'd go to a summit and then he'd take another day or two and visit with us and we'd be there and then he'd come home, and it was just the way it was. Security needs, it's a lot more difficult to do that stuff now. But yeah, it felt right to bring Zav with me it was Indonesia, Singapore, and India.
It was obviously his first time seeing these places.
Well, no, he'd been on the original India trip
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We all
Yeah.
we all tend to.
Yeah, remember when
Yes.
your brother
Remember
on
that
that
trip.
trip with you? That was fun.
That trip happened. I don't think that's.
I don't remember that
It
happening.
was a fever dream.
There is how am I doing for time? By the way,
It already feels too long, Terry. Maybe this is a great stopping off point for me to save. I will swear to you guys, I will keep this interview queued up right here. Maybe I'll even go back by like 10 seconds, and I want to do more of this with Daniel. Maybe I can wrestle Daniel in the middle of the day tomorrow to go on about this. But like, oh, how am I doing for time? You've ruined our time. This was a horrible time to watch Terry. But again, Terry doing that moment, I almost want to clip that saying, me and Justin are friends because I know like I get along with him because he lets me call him on his crap and whatnot, and he loves that. And Justin Trudeau loves disagreement. If someone disagrees with him, he wants the room clear just so they can fight it out. No, Terry, this is just like this is. I don't even know what this is. This is just nothing. This is just content. This is the most blatant form of just non-content. I can't even say anything more than that. Let's see if there's anything maybe on like Twitter I can talk about. If you guys have any questions, I'll answer them. This might be already going on a bit long. But yeah, like goodness, there's so much there's so much that happened this year that it's almost hard to kind of sum it all up. But like this entire year, when I say it's hard to sum up, it's just been constant passage of more taxes, raising of the carbon tax, coming up with new carbon taxes, new regulations, new government programs, and it's turning the country slowly into just a subsidy sluggish economy. And this is where some people are talking about how like, Polyev might be hurting himself by being too negative in the media. He's making himself seem too contentious and negative. I think that when the couple polls came out showed the Conservatives down, I think that is just because the media has really started trying to opening up on Polyev, that the Conservatives have slipped a bit. But if the left is going to celebrate the Conservatives still being up 10 points on the Liberals, they're done. And the fact that the Conservatives are more than doubling the Liberals in the fundraising is a big sign that the Liberals just have no capacity to come back, because they cannot fund an election campaign that could probably challenge the Conservatives at this point. I actually don't think that there's going to be a spring election. There's a lot of people talk about spring elections. I think whenever someone starts invoking the idea that there's an election right around the corner, but there's really no evidence of it, usually it's about trying to gain fundraising dollars. Has there been a year over the past, outside of majority governments, since 2019 when Trudeau had a minority government, every single year there are stories about how there might be a spring election? So whenever you hear that there might be a spring election, maybe a 30% chance there's going to be one. It oftentimes, and I heard this from a Conservative MP, they say that when we know there's going to be an election taking place, because we will have Air Canada call us up and say, do you guys also want to rent a campaign jet? Because like obviously, like once Trudeau's gotten a jet, one of the airlines is going to call the Conservatives to see if they want one. Thank you, Angela, for saying my commentary is brilliant. I try my best, and I just hope that I don't repeat myself too much. I would actually, you know what? You've convinced me potentially that we maybe shouldn't get rid of the CBC, but just replace the entire board by Daniel, and that Daniel gets to control all of the programming and can just like walk in the middle of a CBC broadcast and just be like, hey, what are you doing? What is this? You've done 4 segments on the same thing and you've said nothing. You're wasting taxpayer money. I'd pay so much money for Daniel to be able to just critique CBC journalists on the air. Honest take about Pierre Poilievre's weaknesses and vulnerabilities. I'd say the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of Pierre Poilievre, and again, I'm literally a candidate running for the Conservatives, and this is where I will literally answer any question. I do not care to be like, well, that might not be a good thing for me to answer. But I think the weaknesses of vulnerabilities of potential weaknesses and vulnerabilities, because I think he's not really shown him to have many weaknesses or vulnerabilities so far. Poilievre's weaknesses would probably be the same as Scheer's, in the sense that I don't think he's actually demonstrated any weakness so far. Scheer is actually a very good politician and could have been a good leader, but he listened to too many of his advisors, and he listened to too many advisors in the background, too much focus group content where Andrew Scheer went out there and he didn't actually sound like a normal person, because he in his head was probably full of just terrible advice from advisors and poll results that he was supposed to follow. Don't talk about this issue, talk about this issue. Oh, don't use that word, use this word. And I think it kind of unstrung Scheer. Poilievre mostly seems to just not care about red Tory advisors telling him how to get the media on his side. Oh, and if you pass your own carbon tax, maybe Vashi Capellos will get off your back and Chantal Hubert will pretend she likes you. It's never going to happen. And so I think that there has been tiny moments in Poilievre's leadership where you could tell he was maybe listening to one of his background advisors and he like said the wrong thing, or he took the wrong position, or he softened too much on a potential particular issue. But then I've been very happy to see that most of the time or I think pretty much all the time, I couldn't actually name an issue he's been bad on, but he's always corrected back towards being more dedicatedly conservative. So, taking a position against gender theory and in favor of parental rights, and now he's actually coming out and saying that he is looking for a reduction in immigration because we just don't have enough housing. All that stuff's good, but again, his vulnerability could be if he ever tricks himself into listening to red Tory advisors in the background of the party. I've been happy to hear that most of them have kind of been moved on. If they can't win an election with Scheer and O'Toole, why should we keep employing these people? It's why I never understand when certain campaign managers are hired by different parties when I know their track record is mostly failure. And it's not because they're taking on hard cases, then they're losing tough elections where they weren't expected to win. They're losing elections they could have won, but they're just their skills and their election operating or election campaign operating skills are antiquated and very 90s. And when I say 90s, I mean like red Tory, just say nothing and hopefully the Canadian public thinks that you're professional and competent enough to reelect you. Will they have to address this petition in Parliament mid to late January, likely I've heard? Or I assume that you're talking about the Frary petition about the government, like wanting the government to dissolve. They have to hear the petition. If a petition has enough signatures, I only think you need a certain amount of signatures. I think it doesn't matter how many signatures it has, but Michelle will be able to report out that petition, and the government is obligated to give it a response. I think that Michelle, that's her name. I think she's been doing this in a very smart way, where I know she knows this petition, and I know you all know the petition's not actually going to end the government. 400,000 people, 370,000 people signing a petition doesn't mean that the government has to dissolve, or we'd have constant governments being dissolved all the time. The point is that I think what she wants is not only is a show of force to show how much people dislike Trudeau, but it's hoping that the government gives a really childish response to the petition that the Conservatives can take advantage of. It is political maneuvering type tactics, or like very, very politician type tactics from Michelle, but it's also very smart. There's nothing wrong with sometimes being a very skillful politician if you're getting the right things done. Yeah, I don't think he's ever actually provided us any of that proof on the Najar killing potentially involving the Indian government. And it could have been India, but if you're not going to accuse an ally, and just keep it to yourself or keep it to the back channels. Ooh, my internet might be starting to waver a bit here. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad, but that might be a good reason to end it pretty soon. Ooh, yeah, Louis Guanlock just pointed out that the petition E4701 is at 393,000 signatures. So if any of you has not signed it, make sure you go and sign it. I've definitely signed it. If you just type in petition E4701, it will immediately come up because like so many people have clicked on it. It is at the top of Google. I guarantee if you even type in Canadian parliamentary petitions, probably what the E4701 is probably one of the first ones to come up. Well, if he did a line of coke before the interview, maybe he'd be energetic. He's just completely unfocused and sluggish in his answers. There's so many pauses, dude. Like his pauses, he has some of the most pregnant pauses I've ever seen. someone exploit in order to try and figure out what they're going to say. You can tell whenever he's answering a question, not only is he just, it's not like he's thinking because he wants to come up with a thoughtful answer. He's thinking to not get himself in trouble, because Justin Trudeau is an incredibly dangerous speaker because he constantly puts his foot in his mouth. That interview is full of him basically saying that you're a fool if you're an idiot, or you're just anxious if you're going broke. Merry Christmas. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for giving so many great comments. Terry, you actually set me up with so many things to say. Yeah, it's a great season. Jesus Christ is born. This is the Christmas is a great season, but it's really kind of the lead up going towards Easter. I don't want to turn this into like a religious stream, but I'm obviously like a born again saved Christian. So obviously the Christmas has a deeper meaning than just family and time off and whatnot. So but so far the great thing is no matter how bad the country gets, they always have more to life than just politics. Sorry, I think I'm messing with my microphone there. Sorry, BL wants me to acknowledge him because he wants me to make a door knocking video. I eventually will make a door knocking video on my theory and strategy for door knocking, and maybe I can even kind of make it a video so that everyone who watches the National Telegraph can, get an insight on how door knocking works. So if you ever want to go door knocking, that you can kind of feel more comfortable doing it. I can kind of demystify the process and find the ways I think are best to speak to people. So far in my campaign in Signal Hill, the door knocking has been fantastic. Every once in a while you go down the street and nobody wants to talk to you, but that's just how it works sometimes. It's just that people sometimes are curmudgeon, or they live in a neighborhood that's very quiet and they're kind of awkward when they come to the door. But most of the time, if you just do enough doors, you'll hit people who actually want to talk to you, whether they're more in favor of your agenda or not. And if you have the right ways of approaching issues, you can get a lot of people on side on issues that you never thought you could. Yeah. Shout out to all my Christians in the chat, including Tony Fox. Yeah, thank you, Louise. Yeah, I'm sorry, I kept ignoring you about the door knocking video, but I definitely want to make a door knocking video. I just have to figure out a way of making it so that people will actually watch it, because I could see that seeming like such a boring video title. If I came like with Wyatt Claypool explains door knocking, people probably don't want to watch it. So I would love to see like a liberal fail at door knocking on tape, and then use that as an opportunity to explain door knocking, because then people might actually watch the video. I don't want to sound like a complete professional, like stale YouTuber, but I always try to find an angle where someone will actually watch the videos I make, because what's the point of putting out content if nobody's listening? Honestly, that's kind of always been the problem with the PPC, is that you can have great positions on certain issues, but if you put it in the form of a party that makes itself so prone to purity testing and talking about how you're better than everyone else, and that like it becomes a social media party about being edgy, it doesn't matter if you're running on the right things. You actually might poison people's impression to those right things by being, just a blowhard, which I find that you get a lot of, not PPC voters or supporters, but a lot of the influencers very much, I think, have turned people off over time. Thank you for coming and joining this common sense chat then. It's been a fun stream. I'll probably end it here just because I don't want to have this video just being dragged out by me, commenting on every little thing that people are saying in the chat. Although, thank you for that, your amazing donation, Shelwyn Rodney. Is that Shelwyn? Is that how I say it? Shelwyn Rodney? $50 is amazing. Thank you. I know you donated to my legal fund. You really helped me out. Everyone who's ever given $5 to this one, I think her name's Cheryl. I'm so sorry for having now potentially forgotten your name. I'm going to call you Cheryl again. But she gave me like $800 over a period of time. And that has helped me avoid any like debt on credit cards and whatnot, because I have to pay for my legal costs however I can. And so far I've avoided having to pay any interest. I've sometimes cut it close. Like literally the next day I would have had to pay like a crazy amount of money if I didn't get a certain amount of donations in. And I don't try and like beg for money, which is why for the first year and a half of my lawsuit, I never even raised a single dollar, never asked for a dollar. But then it got to the point where it was going to be unsustainable if I didn't ask for money, and people have been extremely generous and thoughtful. So thank you for all that you guys have done for me. This year, I'll keep making content for you. Not that I can ever pay you back, because I don't think even in an entire year I can make someone enough content that would justify like a $50 subscription to me. But I'm happy that you felt that you get enough quality from this channel that you've been donating. So other than that, Merry Christmas to everyone. I'll try and make a video tomorrow with Daniel, or maybe I'll just go solo and continue roasting Justin Trudeau's interview. We'll maybe even do last year's interview with Terry Demont, because this has been hilarious to me. But other than that, I hope everyone has a great night, and I'll try and get more content up. I'm not going to take a Christmas break where I don't make content for 2 weeks. It takes me no time to make some of these videos, and I enjoy it. So I'll just try to keep, pushing through, making stuff whenever I get I get a thought to do something. Anyways, other than that, have a good one.